This week on Loki Legends, I sit down with Mick Champayne. Mick is a visual designer by day, working on Google's Search, Doodle, and Delight team, and moonlighting as an illustrator. We explore how the word delight permeates all of Mick's work and life and helps to effectively create brands, illustrations, and products. Mick's interjecting her personality and unique brand of humor into everything that she crafts, from passion projects to freelance work. And it's paying off. Mick is no ordinary Midwest momma. She has been named one of the Noun Project and Dribble's top illustrators of 2024. She has forged a prolific career by embracing the idea of, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, and focusing on the joy of everyday things. From fart jokes to imposter syndrome, gear up for a hilarious and far-ranging conversation with Mick Champayne. Mick, it's so good to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I thought for this episode I might do things a little bit differently, so I broke all of my questions for you into 3 categories. So
I thought you were going to say I threw them all out.
Yeah, I threw them all out off script, and we'll just do it live. But I have 3 categories, and I'm gonna let you drive the conversation. So category 1 is delight. Category 2 is balance and personality. And category 3 is humor. So you pick a category and we can jump in with a random question.
This is like a choose your own adventure book.
Exactly.
Well, since it is the 3rd day of the new year and my brain cells are not completely working, I feel like maybe we should start with humor.
Beautiful.
Door number three.
Door number three. Okay. I'm sure we'll jump around. It'll be non-linear and it'll just kind of stitch together naturally. But you've said on the internet that you draw mostly to make yourself laugh. So I'm curious, when was the first time that you realized that humor was important to you and maybe more important as a tool of communication and connection?
Oh man. I mean, I think humor has probably been like a thread throughout my entire life. If I'm honest, like, I don't know. It's something that I definitely was, what's the word? Like nurtured by my father. Like he was just like, we always watched movies together, especially comedy and like cartoons and stuff like that. So I feel like from an early age, he was imprinting his sense of humor on me like really well. But I would say like, I don't know. I've always like, especially like school projects and like college and everything like that, was always trying to like find the like funny. I was always trying to be the class clown, if I'm honest. Like I'm very like, I can be very type A, but I also like to balance out with like the humor and like the funny and stuff like that. I like a joke. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And I think so yeah, I've always tried to do it, but I think I've been more conscious about it in the past like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years or something like that, when I took up my drawing practice. So I think a lot of that was, born out of frustration with my day job. I was, I don't know, I'd worked for a bunch of agencies. I was a designer. You have creative directors, you have clients, you don't have a lot of like your own. Sometimes you try to bring your whole self to work, but you can't because you have brands and guidelines and things like that. So I think I just, got to a point where I was a little bit frustrated with everything and decided to start drawing. And the first project, I didn't even call it that at the time, but like I'm very big on meme culture. You've probably noticed. But I started taking like memes, like just weird GIFs or JPEGs that I found on the internet or something like that into Illustrator, and just like teaching myself how to like illustrate by like just drawing on top of them. And what I would try to do is like, there's something funny, and like I can't always explain why a picture might be funny to me, but there's just something in it. And I started doing this practice of like trying to distill what I thought was like the funniest thing about it, and like removing all of, because with a weird JPEG you might get like all sorts of information around it, like. And it started with this one, I can remember the dog. It was like this dog that had like a picture of a dog, a white fluffy Pomeranian thing, with like its face was in front of a wine glass, and so it's just this big poofy thing, but then its face was so tiny because the refractoring of like the glass like made its face like tiny.
Yeah.
I just remember it being like hilarious, and I didn't know what it was about it, but I tried to like just like make the most simple version of that in an illustration. And like, I don't know, I just remember like I just loved the outcome of it. And then I ended up like posting it online or something like that. Just like, I don't know, if you go back far enough in my Instagram, it's just like all pictures. But then I just like all of a sudden was like, just posted that. It was back when like people didn't care about perfectly curated Instagram feeds and stuff. And I just remember people being like, like liking it. Like, obviously it's like friends and family or whatever, but they were just like, like, I don't know, there was something in it that I thought was like, oh, this is funny. And I feel like that just kind of got that ball rolling. Then I was like, oh, like I can, you know, give people a good time and make them laugh, like with just a still image. And I thought that was, I don't know, something in that. It took me a while to realize what I was doing, but like at the, like, I just kept doing it. It was, I turned it into a whole series and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll still like, you know, if an image goes viral, sometimes I'll be like, I'll try my hand at like going back to that like practice of just trying to draw what I think was funny about it.
I think that passion projects are incredibly valuable. And I can say that I kind of like built a lot of my career on just kind of like making things either for fun or for the practice of it and just sharing it online. And then you do that enough and people will follow along either for the journey, because maybe in your case it's funny and cool, but in mine kind of like trying to hone a skill set or craft, and then that led to work down the road. But I guess, how did that kind of series of kind of picking up drawing again and crafting silly things, how did that kind of turn into where you are now?
That's a very great deep question.
It's really connecting the dots, I guess.
I
Like
know,
forcing on the
yeah,
spot.
no. I'm like having all these epiphanies. But I think, you know, it was kind of the confluence of time too, where I started like, I think around that time I turned 30, which is like, whatever. I don't care about milestone birthdays or whatever, but it was like, there was something about that. Turning 30, I just had recently paid off my student loans. And I think like, not that those are all related, but weirdly enough, I just feel like I started to take more risks, and I started to like really embrace my weird a little bit more. Like you know, with the student loans hanging over me for like so long, it's just like, I need a job just so I can pay my bills and pay things off. And I think I felt this sense of freedom when those were kind of gone, and like I could be like more myself. And um, I think that coupled with like the reception of like these weird little things I'm making and putting out into the world kind of bolstered my confidence. And I think that is kind of what started propelling me into like really embracing who I am personally. Cause I think, you know, it's kind of interesting. When I started my career, I definitely thought there was like one way to design. Like it was like capital D, like I would look at all of like Dribbble and Behance and or awards or anything like that. And I was like, all these like beautiful, amazing sites and works and stuff like that. And I'd look at that and I'd look at my stuff and I'm like, it's not quite the same. But and so I think I was, you know, really in my head about like how to be a designer or how to be an illustrator, or like what to do. And it was just like, I didn't know, and I didn't have the confidence at that point to like really lean into like, you know what, just forging my own path and like going this way. And I think the humor kind of helped bring that out of me. And it was like, it's the same thing where it's just like, oh, especially if it's self-deprecating and stuff like that, it makes it easier. It's like, I'm in on the joke too, right? So like if this fails and crashes and burns, like it's okay because I didn't put too much investing in it. But I don't know. But and I think just that, and like, you know, sharing more and more online and with other people, people really liked it, and I just kept going with it. And I think that is in a long way of saying how I've got to where I am today, kind of thing.
One thing that's very apparent is that your work is oozing with specific personality, which definitely equates to, this is Mick Champayne's work. And, you know, like how many people are drawing like nude ladies with tacos falling out of their butt, or like every 5 posts is maybe like some sort of fart joke. So like there's a very specific humor, but also style. So I guess the question that I'm getting at is, if there is someone out there that kind of is looking up to you, I want to incorporate more of my authentic self. Like, how would you recommend that they start to kind of cultivate their style and look inward to kind of reflect outward?
I think that maybe a fun exercise would be just like looking as like a mood board or something like that. Like, I think if I've been collecting all of these things from around the internet for years, kind of thing. And honestly, like it's probably like a hard drive full of stuff or whatever that I don't know where about. But I keep like a folder on my desktop, and I do Pinterest and Instagram saves and stuff. Like kind of all in these different areas of my life or whatever. I wish there was one tool to like collate them. But anyway, I think a good exercise that I like to do is just like when I see something I like, pin it or like save it or something, capture it some way. And then I don't know, I'll go back and I constantly look at that inspiration and just like, what did I like about this one? Or what did I like about this? And try to even take that as a reference or a starting point and be like, okay, like I've been doing a lot of like weird 3D things online or whatever. And I'm using my own artwork for this now, but a lot of it has been inspired by other things I've seen out in the world. And so I'm like trying to capture an essence again, like if it's a meme or a GIF or if it's like a style. I think that would be my recommendation, is just kind of like being more reflective on like the things that you're capturing and saving. And then, it's okay to like just bring them in and copy them, like, and learn them. Just don't pass them off as your own, obviously. But
Yeah.
like, I think there's like a way of like, it's the same thing as being a designer. It's just like learning the skills and going through the process is the only way to find that. Yeah, I think that would be my first recommendation, is just look at all the things you already have saved, honestly. And try not to get in your own head about what you think X needs to be. Like if you're a designer or an illustrator or whatever kind of thing, like just going with the flow a little bit more.
An interesting process, because you have to forge your own path, and a lot of the time you grow up with this thought that I have to be like X in order to be successful. But the thing, when you get older and the longer that you're kind of doing and making things, you realize like that person made X because they were doing it their specific way. They have their own set of skills and they have their own set of faults and things that they can't do. And you learn very quickly, especially through the process of like trying to copy for the sake of like learning from someone else's work. It's like, oh, I very much cannot do that at all, but I can do this, this, and this. Maybe I'll try my hand at that. So a lot of like messing up, making mistakes, trying things, and then figuring it out along the way.
It's really tough. I think about it a lot too, because I still have imposter syndrome. I still have insecurities and stuff like that. Like even at that conference we went to, I remember looking at everybody's work and being like, oh, wow, like it's so good. And it was like, I could never. But I think when I step back and like actually think about it, I was like, but that's okay. Like, that's like, that's their skill and that's what they like to do. And I have my own thing or whatever. And like being mindful that there's no one way to like, there's no one way to be a creative. There's no one way to like one style. Like not everybody has to do the same thing. And I think it's just constant reminders of that, because it is really hard not to feel inadequate, like, and lately. Yeah. So
yeah,
I get it.
For sure. Especially seeing thousands of images a day, scrolling through Instagram, and just the comparison can happen very quickly and unintentionally. You're like, damn, they're so good. But it's funny because all of those people are like, oh, so-and-so is so good. And it's all just, we all just do it. So, I mean, might as well just kind of like do your own thing and forge your own way.
Not that I do this consciously, but I like sharing the process of it too. I'm definitely somebody that always wants to make people feel included. And I think, social media, especially, we all know that it can be a highlights reel kind of thing, but like, I don't know. I think being a little bit more lax and sharing those failures or just experiments or things like that makes it a lot more accessible. Like, yeah, again, like I've been working on this 3D tool or whatever. I've never done 3D in my life. It actually, like, the spatial stuff is like breaking my brain a little bit, but like um there's so many things to do it, and if you get too in your head about it, you'll just freeze up about it. And I've actually found like the little weird mistakes. I'm like, oh, like I was making a lava lamp and like I accidentally, like, I guess if you put two things into each other, they like morph. But that's the whole reason I started making my lava lamp, was because I had made this like glass material or whatever, and I accidentally stuck a sphere through the middle of it, and I was like, I liked how it looked. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go with it or whatever.
Yeah.
I was following this tutorial about how to make a gummy bear. And instead I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go this way, like, or whatever. And I think just like embracing those little happy accidents and just following like it. I think especially as a creative, we already have like these, like, we have taste and we have, an instinct of what's good and what's not, kind of thing, or where we should go, and just following those is probably like the best advice. Is like, I could have kept going on that tutorial path, but instead I was like, you know what, I want to play around in here and just like, I think especially if there's no like work deadline or anything like that, but just like the playground kind of mentality of just like, let's just try it out, let's see where it goes.
The yellow brick road is probably the road that you're just enjoying the most, so might as well follow it, because that inspiration will disappear if you get up or take 5 minutes off. So just follow it and see where it leads. It's probably your next project, or maybe even a commissioned job.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of my work has just been like, it almost feels like manic episodes of like, oh, this like burst of creativity. Because like I would say a lot of my time with everything that's like on my plate these days, like I don't have a lot of time to just sit down and just like screw off and like and so when I do get that like moment of like inspiration or like jolt of creativity, I'm like, I'll stay up till like 3 a.m. just like screwing around. Like, you don't want to see me on my computer because I'm like on my couch, just like a dinosaur, just like typing away and stuff like that. Like, my neck hurts for days afterwards, but like it was worth it. Like,
oh, for sure. There was a lot in there that I thought was super applicable. One path that we could take is risk taking and the benefit of taking those risks. Another path could be the quote that you said earlier, which was, "I'm here for a good time, not a long time." So we'll play another round of choose your own adventure.
Yeah, let's do the quote one, because that is like, cool. I heard it on RuPaul's Drag Race one time. I want to say it was Bianca Del Rio. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but she said it. And then I feel like it was just one of those things I was like, actually, like, the more I thought about it, I was like, that's so true. Like, I feel like that's just how I live my life. Like,
yeah. So how does that impact your work in like a tangible way, and maybe like how you think about the creative process? Obviously it ties to like life, because obviously we're only here for a certain amount of time, and it's better to live a fulfilled, happy life in accordance to your own kind of, I guess, like value system. But do you have like a certain set of like values or creative vision when it comes to creative principles?
On my own work, my individual work, again, I think that kind of goes back to the making myself laugh and just like making it, because like it's something you want to share, and makes it, you want to share it a little bit more. You want everyone to be in on the joke. I think I'm here for a good time, not a long time. In my work. Yeah, I think especially like if you're scrolling through an Instagram feed and you stop on it for a second, like I want you to have like a good time kind of thing. I think if maybe that is like a principle I didn't realize I had or whatever. Like or even just clicking through stories. Like I am like a prolific Instagram story person. I do wonder like how many people just like tap out and skip or whatever. But like, again, that was, I think, I guess that is a good practice though, because I really enjoy putting together these like almost like little slideshows for people. And I'm almost maybe too thoughtful about like, there's like a ephemerality about it, but also like I want a story. I want you to have a story. So like if it's captured within one visual or if it's like over a couple of them, I definitely try to like take you along on a little bit of a journey with me. And if it's like just even my references or something like that, I very thoughtful about those things, and I probably spend too much time like putting those together. But what I found is that like that skill of being able to quickly distill what I want to say graphically, visually, and capturing it in one image is helped me in all of the other areas of my design life too. Like when I'm illustrating things, it helps me like, oh, I want to say something, but like, there's a million ways you could go about drawing it. And it's just like a muscle that I've just kept practicing. And now it's like, okay, I want to draw this. I can do that really quickly. Or even when it comes to like work presentations, like I'm putting together a slide deck or whatever. And like, I think I still bring that weirdness to work a little bit more, where like I did a whole presentation once on like, we were working with the Android team on like, the whole benefit of an Android phone is that you can customize it however you want versus like an iPhone where it's like, this is iOS, this is what you get kind of thing. I mean, they're dabbling a little bit in customization, but like if we're real, like Android is and Pixel is like the perfect place to do that. And so we were partnering. I was on the play team at the time, and we did a whole sprint around like how to customize your phone. And at the end of the sprint, you put together a nice packaged presentation for your VPs and your leads to go like review and stuff. And I decided to make the whole thing in the theme of the movie Clueless. So like, I don't know if you remember the whole, the like, it's just especially like a young girl in the 90s, like that closet scene where she's got a computer and it's like, pick out my outfit and like interface and stuff like that. Like, so I just jammed that presentation so full of Clueless references because it's like, it's perfect. You can pick whatever you want kind of thing. And like, I want to say it's those type of things that like help people remember. Like when you give them a metaphor or something like a visual to like kind of gravitate around like and kind of hold on to, it lands a lot better. And so like when you tell a story, it just resonates, and it's easier for people to kind of understand a concept or a pitch or anything like that. So I think weirdly enough, the Instagram stories in a roundabout way have helped with my day job. And I feel like it's this kind of like infinite continuum of like, the more I work on this, it kind of bleeds off into my other parts of my life and stuff like that.
I think what I'm picking up on, maybe the clues here, I'm not clueless at the moment, but that's my shitty pun for the day. But I think what I picked up from that was that it all stems seemingly to this feeling of bringing delight into people's lives. Is that true to say that may be a theme of your work?
I would say so, yeah, which is like fitting because I'm finally on a delight team at work or whatever. But I would say delight, it's one of those weird words that I also like kind of get cringy about, because I feel like, especially in like web and design trends and stuff like that, it's like add delight and stuff like that. And I think it's really hard to define it. And like, and so it's been a very interesting thing. But I would say delight does feel like the word, or joy, but I don't know. Joy also feels like a little too like grandma to me. I don't know. I don't know. I just like making people happy. Like, I don't know. I just like, but then happy can be such a one note word too. So
true, because happiness is a maybe fleeting feeling, maybe satisfaction could be a fleeting feeling, maybe that has more longevity. I think of like,
but then again, that's where I mean, like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Like, I just want those, like, I don't think especially after the past couple of years I've had, I don't know if I can experience full happiness or joy without feeling like the low things too. Like, it feels very yin yang, where it's like you can't know the greatest highs until you've experienced the lowest lows. And and I don't know. So I feel like life is hard for a lot of people. So like one thing that I think I really like doing is just like, if it's making you laugh, like that is a win for me kind of thing. And I don't know. And I don't know if there's a one word to encapsulate that. Like delight is, I don't know, delight feels like that's a good description, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like enough either. Like it
Mm.
feels like sugary and sweet to me, but
Yeah, you
I don't
need
know.
delight with depth, if you will.
I like that.
You can
Yeah.
have it. I'm just giving out free things.
I'm gonna go redo my entire website on that pitch. Yeah, I know.
It's applicable, and one thing that you do have on your website that you said a line here,
Oh
and through the
gosh.
power of editing, we'll skip to the line. Life's too short to make things nobody wants, and I think that's applicable and is important to what we're talking about.
So I wrote that line years ago when I was like in advertising. And I
Mm,
just remembered like I've always heard to never put on your website any type of work you don't ever want to do again kind of
hmm
thing.
Yeah.
Which is really hard for me because like I graduated in the recession, so I took whatever job I could get, which was like spoiler alert advertising, and
hmm
I had no idea what I was doing. I had come from like school where I'd learned interactive arts and media was my major, and like I was building flash websites, I was making all sorts of weird things or whatever, and then all of a sudden I was thrust into this job where I kind of did portfolio school on the job, which was more
mm
like learning about art and copy and how they work together, which again, no regrets because I use it now every day of my life or whatever, but at the same time like I was put onto these clients that I was like one of them was a giant shall remain nameless. Not talking crap on anyone. Don't ever burn bridges. That's the one
No.
takeaway from this talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like these it was an appliance brand, like kitchen appliances, and I was selling big steel boxes and stuff like that. And I just was like, I don't know, I would just like work on these like banner ads and email
hmm
campaigns for like a refrigerator or whatever. And it was like, again, like trying to find the joy in that was a little bit tough. That was kind of when I started drawing. But I think I just remember like, life is too short to make things that nobody wants. And I felt like I was making wallpaper in the world. Like I was like
hmm
this same person that was putting on ad blockers on my, my Chrome or whatever. So like I was like making things that I was like that nobody wants to
Yeah.
see or whatever. And it was like that was kind of a turning point where I was like, okay, I want to start pivoting back to like my roots, which was like at that point web and digital, but like eventually turned into UX and product and stuff like that. So I started making little micro steps back to that kind of stuff.
I feel that delight has a personal definition to everyone. We kind of went through it a little bit, but I feel like there is almost a business value to bringing delight to someone's life, and especially in like a product world, especially in like a brand world. I feel like delight stems to like an emotional response in someone, could brighten their day, could help them connect to a brand. What are your thoughts about the power of humor, delight, and that kind of emotional resonance that you can get from it, and how it connects to maybe like a brand or a product world?
Then the next big move that I made was I went to this agency called Huge, which was like, again, if I had a thought of what a designer was, I was like, Huge was it. Like Huge
Yeah.
is like, I couldn't believe I actually like got in, and like I was just like so surprised. But I think again, because it was like embracing my weird, and like I was totally weird. I was like, wasn't gunning for this job. They came to me and I was like, all right, if you want it, you got it kind of thing. And they went with it. But anyway, I think I was on the McDonald's account, and
Hmm.
that was really interesting because at that point I was a vegetarian and I hadn't eaten fast food in probably like 10 years. So like I was like, I'm working on McDonald's, like
Hmm.
okay, but it was the we were the agency of record for all of their digital products. So we were working on the app, the kiosks, the I worked on the design system and things like that. And I think what I found in that was like a comfort, like again, like fast food, not my personal delight, but like that's fine, like kind of thing. But it is such a joyous brand, and I think I really learned the like how important it is, the brand to the product kind of thing. Like you can, it's a very holistic thing where it's like you could have the best product in the world, but like if it's not connecting to somebody on an emotional level, it doesn't really matter kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the same with the brand. It's like, well, you can have this big beautiful brand or whatever, but like if it's causing people friction, like if it's a bank or something and they can't get their money out because their website's broken or their app or whatever, like it's like worthless. So there's definitely like a balance there where like I feel like you need to find a sweet spot and like having like a very strong brand that is reflected through the product. And I think McDonald's was a learning point for me where that was like um the big project that I was on was like a lot of it had to do with ordering, and it was this project where like you could, it seems so foreign or so like duh now, but it was a little revolutionary at the time. This is like 5 years ago when I think we were doing it, but it was right in COVID, you could order ahead. And I think there was a lot of research that was done where like people were worried because, McDonald's comes out so fresh and quick. Like if I set my order and I go to pick it up at the store, it's going to be sitting there for like 10 minutes before I get there. And that was a real concern. So we had to do a lot of like exploration into like, well, one, that wasn't going to happen because it's like they have geofences. So as soon as you like cross a line, like it was a lot of service design as well. But once they cross like into this like radius around the store, that's when they kick the like order over to the and then they like make it so that it when it is hot and ready when you arrive. But we had to do a lot of work in like explaining that in the app. And like again, you're an app, people are thinking it's going to be quick, and you've got to have that like be able to like tell that story quickly and like easily. And there was a lot of moments like where it was educational too, like okay, so you need to go find like a spot in the restaurant parking spot. And so we had a lot of fun like creating actually these like delightful moments of like, oh well, we'll visually show like the sign come up and like that your numbers show up in it, and then like it pans away and like shows a little car coming out and stuff like that. And it was like those little things that I think we take for granted that like actually there was a lot of thought and research that had gone into it. And yeah, so it was like a really fun project, but that taught me like how important like those little delightful moments are, even from like a business perspective, because like the conversion rate and like the education so that people will keep coming back and keep doing it, like is very important.
I think about delight in terms of like a way in which to make someone's day slightly better. And there's like a million ways that you can do that. So just thinking about either like a fun interaction, like you had said, or like what is like a playful Easter egg that someone can find? Is there like a mini game when you fill out like a form and it goes to like a Tetris or Pong, or like there's like a million ways to incorporate it. And some people are much more receptive to that on a client level than
I know. I love those like little things, especially like if you like hit something you didn't know what you just did. Like I just did this the other day in Instagram. If you're in a direct message with somebody and they just send an emotion or emoji, I accidentally touched the emoji and then it turned it into a Pong game. Did you know this? Did you see
I
this?
didn't notice at all.
Okay, hold on. I want to see if I can show you it really quick. It's so fun. I had no idea that I did. I was like, what did I just do? And then it fills your screen with peaches. But it was like little things like that. I was like, again, what is that going to do for Instagram? Probably nothing, but like, I don't know. I think another really good case study that I have no actual experience with, but Duolingo is just like, like that. I think that is like a perfect example of like the brand, but that stupid owl, like he is unhinged and like.
He was trying to burn my house down the other day.
Oh, you want to know something embarrassing? Look at my streak.
Oh, that's big. What language are you learning?
Dutch. Like, Dutch? But yeah, this is where like it's been totally gamified for me. Whereas like I'm just keeping the streak alive. I do like the 2 minutes a day kind of thing, just like just to keep it. And I'm like, but I like to think I have some comprehension.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to talk to you in it, but like I can read a sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I got like 150 days of Spanish or something.
They posted this today. Like, what the heck?
The buff owl.
Yeah. And I think they just like, there's not many brands that can get away with like a mascot, but
Hmm.
like they didn't just do a mascot. They like went like, I don't know, just chaos mode. And they're just like, and that makes me want to keep using their.
I think they do bring a lot of like joy and delight while also just like guilt tripping you and making you feel
Mhm.
awful, which is like the
Yeah.
balance, which is I think why they probably need the humor to balance that out. And they have
Yeah.
the thing is they have a very like strong business like focus mentality. Like they're A/B testing up the wazoo and they know exactly how to get people to come back, what messages and what copywriting to test. And like obviously like but it is through a lens of like a little bit of this delight and joy to get you to come back, because I mean if you set a goal to learn this language, then you're doing yourself a disservice to not show up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, some people are motivated by like drill sergeant, like yelling at you and stuff like
mhm.
that. I'm not. And I think a lot of people aren't. But like, I think they found like that sweet spot again where it's just like, it's enough where it's like encouraging you. But like, if you let the clock run out too late, then that drill sergeant, like, I'm going to burn your house down, comes
Mhm.
out. Like,
Yeah, I enjoy them from like a brand perspective too. I think it's interesting to play on like that emotional side and have fun with it. I think Liquid Death does a really good job of that as well from a branding perspective of bringing like delight in these really abstract kind of uncouth ways.
unconventional.
Yeah, like I think one of their latest ads was like 8-year-olds like cracking into the cans of water and like looking like they're partying. So it's like very, very much like playing on party culture stereotypes and like ragers to, but doing it through hydration instead. So a very unconventional way, shifting the norm and perspectives, and it's all just water. So I think they
I
do an incredible
mean,
job.
as a parent, I would buy that for my kid because of that. Like, I know, I'm like, you're not really speaking to the kids there. You're speaking to the parents. Like, and that's
Exactly. It's like you want to enjoy the joke too.
yeah.
I was curious your perspectives on how to balance identities. And I think that as people, we have a lot of them. I'm a designer, I'm a CEO, I'm an illustrator, I'm a mom, a dad, a partner, a mentor, a friend. There's all these pieces of our own personalities. And sometimes they can run into conflict or one can take more priority than the other. So I'm curious your perspective around balancing all of these and how you put them into the right ratios.
Ooh, yeah, I think that's an ever evolving problem. And like, I'm just like, it's like a Rubik's Cube that I'm always still trying to like figure out. But again, like guiding principles. So I think a lot of times people parent in reaction to how their parents parented. And like I think my parents did a great job, but at the same time, like there's things I would change. And yeah, I think one of the learnings that I had from my mom, especially, was she made a lot of her own identity around her children. And
Mm,
like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And like, again, there's different perspectives and people's ways of life and stuff like that. But like, what I found is that she had a really hard time when her children grew up and
mhm,
like kind of thing. And so I've always been very sensitive to like making sure that I'm not just one thing. Like if this is an
mm,
Instagram bio, like I'm not gonna like just put just mom or just designer or just illustrator. I want to try to make sure that this is like an equalizer on a stereo. Like I was like, oh, it's gonna constantly move as life
mm.
goes through, but I would like to like have somewhat of an even wave
Yeah. Yeah.
going. Um and yeah, I mean, at any moment in my life or point of a year or something like that, I might be leaning in more on the designer or I might be on the illustrator kind of thing. And so the balance thing, I haven't nailed it completely. I don't know if anybody ever will be able to, but I think it's just important to me that I maintain them. I think is more the way that I think about it, or I don't ever want to just be one one identity, because like that would be boring anyway. But
It'd be boring, and it's hard when you lose that one thing, like you had already mentioned. I had to shift from like being more like I'm the founder to kind of switching it to I'm a person who builds and creates things. So that way, if suddenly my job gets taken over by robots, I can find something or build
yeah,
something or do something else. It's not so scary, and
yeah.
embracing that failure or micro failures or whatever.
Maybe it's a survival tactic or something.
Could be.
So not just like one thing, because there's definitely well, again, when it comes to balance, like I think, so I do a lot of illustration on the side, and I actually have like very well paying client work, which is like so surprising to me. It was one of those things I never like, it didn't set out, there was no intention, but it was like, I think it's that law of attraction where it's like you
Mhm.
put things out into the world, it'll come back to you. And I think when it comes to balance, like, well, and again, the way that my parents were and stuff like that, I like, my mom had her own small business and stuff like that. And like the stress and anxiety of it is like a huge reason that I'm like going for the giant job that like has like 401ks and like just stability and security and stuff like that. Like there, I don't know. It's just your tolerance for risk, right? Like, but
Mhm.
so what I like, I guess the way I think of my life is like I like to have that and like on the back, not the
Mhm.
background, but basically like the foundation. And then illustration, it's like one of those passion things that like it makes me so happy to do it. And so
Yeah.
like I worry about if I were to make that the full-time job that
Mhm.
I'd have to take on or sacrifice, my own values or things like that, or just things that I might just to make ends meet a little bit
Mhm.
more. I don't know, I can rationalize it in my brain really well, but like, I don't know. I think with like illustration, it's like I've been very lucky to like get these great projects to work on. Like I got to do a bunch of packaging for Minute Maid for their kids line and stuff like that, and like never would have thought that I would get to do that or whatever. Or I helped bunch of daycare centers with their logo and identity, and then like even inside of the play centers got to do like a whole alphabet wall where I drew
Cool.
all of the alphabet, which was really fun. And then there's this Scandinavian hotel brand that I just
Mm.
finished a project for, and like, and so I'm like, to think that my little illustrations are going to be on like a door knocker somewhere is like in like weird part of Europe is like kind of cool. But it's all those things where I'm like, I can take those risks
Mm.
because I feel like I have this like safety net over here. And, also if those type of projects don't come along, then I have this to pay for the other parts of my life too. So,
Well, that's beautiful because it goes into, well, mindset goes into risk, and it shows that there are different paths for any creative. You can still, rock a day job and still like hustle on your night times or weekends and still do really amazing things, but it is all just calculated risk. I mean, going all in is pretty damn scary because you have to, make rent, pay the bills, and months can be really different depending on the industry, the economy.
I do think like maybe one day,
Mm.
I don't know, because like grass is always greener, but like I'm always like, oh, I have so many friends that freelance and like they love it. Some of them were like my friend, she was kind of forced into it, and so like she got laid off, and like it was a really crappy story, but that's not for now. But especially this like, it just feels like an epidemic of layoffs from
Mm.
everywhere, especially in the
Yeah.
design industry. And so I feel like a lot of people are kind of put into this position where they have to figure it out, and like freelance has been like especially for my friend, it was actually like revolutionary for
Mm.
her almost, where she really enjoys it. Like she's like, I can just dip in. I manage my own calendar, my own time. Like if she wants to take a month off, like she could. And like there's like parts of that which is like very attractive to me too. Like I'm
Hmm.
like, oh,
And I think that's the beautiful thing about life. It's a pretty wild ride and journey.
like not to get deep and whatever, but like my dad was the type of person that like worked 35 years in a job and was like waiting his entire life to retire, and he didn't enjoy it, but like, maybe it's a generational thing too. And then a few years after he finally made that retirement age, and he's like, we grew up in Michigan, like he lived there his entire life, and then I feel like it's every Midwestern man's dream to move to Florida when they retire. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, they're just like, I'm not dealing with snow anymore. Like, that's it, kind of thing. And so he moved down there, and then within a couple years, one had to survive the pandemic, so like that definitely like dashed a lot of like those early retirement plans of like, I'm gonna go finally see the world kind of thing. Like, he was a huge World War II buff and stuff, and was like wanted to go see like Normandy and like all of those places in Europe or whatever. And then so the pandemic kind of squashed those dreams for a while, and then about 2 years ago he fell down on the ground, and we found a tumor the size of a tomato in his brain, and it turned out to be brain cancer, and within the next 18 months he passed away from it. So it's like, it's really tough, like, to think that like you waited your whole life to do something and then you just don't get that chance. So I think, if anything, that's a big lesson I've learned. It's just like, do what makes you happy now, because you
Or you're
just
not
never
guaranteed
know.
another day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, again, I'm here for a long time. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, kind of thing. So it's just, I mean, obviously there's priorities, and you can't just like go all like, I really want to go do this or whatever. There's definitely compromises, but I think what you prioritize in your life too, like, just don't put it off. Like, whatever there's like a big dream that you have or something, like, try to make it happen sooner than later.
Exactly. No, it's so true, especially because you never know what health or where you'll be when you get to that retirement age, or if it's even possible for
I was
our
gonna say Social
generation.
Security, if we'll even have it, like, kind of thing. Or it's like, yeah, I know, like a couple years ago, my husband he was working at this plant. He was a chemical engineer, and they laid off that location, and so they gave him this giant severance package. And I remember we were like, it wasn't like a life-changing amount of money, but it was enough to be like, okay, what should we do with it, kind of thing, or whatever. And I don't know, I think that whole retirement thing with my dad too, like, he didn't take big elaborate vacations. Like, I don't know, it was this lesson that I was like, we should just go and do it while we can. And we ended up we wanted to use the money to go as far as we could for as long as we could. So we went to Asia for 3 months, and it was amazing. It was so good. And I'm like, I mean, we could have waited until we retired, but like, why? Might as well, while we're like, have the energy and the, like, I don't know, the drive to do it. So no regrets there. Yeah. Then we came back and went to real life. So it was fine.
What was kind of the learnings from maybe that trip in Asia? Obviously, that's a very different culture, but obviously, I think anytime you travel, you take a piece of it back with you, and it alters your perspective, especially, coming from the Midwest to East Asia, very different.
We lived that kind of nomadic traveler lifestyle, or whatever, where we just like bopped from city to city, didn't have plans, just kind of like followed it or whatever. And what I found was, we went to Japan, we went to South Korea, like all these very different like cultures. And then we spent a month in Thailand, we went to Bali and stuff, Hong Kong and Singapore, and like very different experiences. And what I did find, weirdly enough, and maybe this is my American showing or something, but I was like, at some point I just got like tired. I was traveling and just like not having something I was working towards or whatever. It was like, it was a nice break, but I felt like, especially when we were in Thailand and in Bali, it was just like beach after beach after beach. And it was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this anymore, which was like, good problem to have, I guess. I don't know, but it made me reflect. Not that I was like in a rush to get back to work, but it made me realize about myself that I need things to work towards, and just living like a completely like aimless, but just like unstructured life maybe is not quite for me either. So again, it goes back to balance though. Like, we'll happily still take a month off anywhere if you give it to me, kind of thing. But I think like ultimately having a little something to work towards or feel productive in a way, it would be nice.
I think often people find that like taking a vacation is maybe the thing that's going to get them out of maybe this feeling of burnout, or like that they just need to chill. And I think that it's different for every particular person, because obviously you can work so hard that you just do need to do absolutely nothing, or you just need to like stumble upon your next project. So it could just be like what the type of work that you're doing, the feeling of the work that you were doing versus what you want to be doing. So I think that I'm curious, this is a big part of one of your talks. So I'm curious how you get out of your bee hole and and kind of overcome burnout. So what is a beehole?
My burnout hole.
Yeah.
I cannot take credit. I feel like somebody gave me that idea for that line. And I was like, I love it. Like I was like, it's just like there's a Venn diagram of things I like. Burnout, or not like, but like burnout, buttholes, beehole, like whatever. Yeah, my burnout hole. This is a great visual thing for me. I don't know. It's funny because I definitely felt burnt out, like especially last year, where like we just got my dad's diagnosis, and you had like of this terminal brain cancer, and then work. As soon as I'd gotten that, then like work had laid off like 12,000 jobs overnight, and then it was just like a rolling calendar of all of these layouts happening to my friends and everyone, and we're all just like the survivor's guilt, and just like, oh my god, like it's like Squid Games. I've been watching that again, and I'm like, please don't shoot me, like kind of thing. You're just like trying to survive. And then I like completely lost any motivation to just go make things or do anything for myself. And then on top of that, then the AI thing came, and I was just like, I'm done. Like we're just
Peace.
over it. Like, yeah, I know. And so I ended up like, when there's people in your life, my friend Casey is one of them. And he's just like, always just like, I don't know. How to describe him? He's the early adopter of things or whatever. So
Okay.
yeah, he's just like, and he gets so excited about like just trying stuff. And like, if you can find people like that in your life, like hold on to them for dear life, basically. He like when all this stuff was coming out, like everybody I knew was just like, this is awful. It's going to ruin our lives. We're just going to become like, not needed and stuff like that or whatever. And I was in the depressive part of it, and he was just like, this is exciting, this is cool. And then like I remember him talking about it, and he just like sent me over like a couple examples, and like I was like, oh, it kind of sparked something. And I was like, okay, this sounds kind of cool, maybe we can play with it, like a little tiny inroad for there. And anyway, all this to say that he or that you just need like a little push sometimes, like a little something. And so I ended up playing around with AI. I asked like ChatGPT to like, how do I get out of burnout hole? Like, how do I get out of it? Like kind of thing. It was just like, let's just see what it says. And I actually like loved the answers and stuff like that. And it was, yeah, again, sent me into one of those like little rabbit holes, like where I'm like, okay, like now I'm like having fun. I'm staying up till 3 a.m., like prompting things or whatever. And so that was a nice nudge and a push. But I don't know. I think everybody thinks of burnout as just like a finite experience, and what I'm finding right now is it's kind of cyclical.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
I think it's just part of modern life now, which is like unfortunate. But I just when I thought that I had kind of gotten a good management of it and stuff like that, I was like feeling inspired again. I wanted to feel creative. I was making things and having fun. And then I don't know, like I feel like I'm in it again. Like I had like a good year where I'm like, okay, things are working, things are good or whatever. And now, especially with my dad's passing, I'm feel like I'm falling back into it or whatever. And so again, I don't know if I have the answer for it, but if it's just being able to find those, like you said it earlier, like something that grabbed your attention for 5 minutes and made you feel compelled to like keep doing it. Like I think that's the antidote, like or whatever, like how to like get like I don't know, like because I know I've talked about this 3D thing again, but I just like it was one of those like lofty goals. It was like I'll learn animation this year,
Mhm.
especially with like the season of New Year's resolutions. Like this is the year I'm going to learn After Effects. This is the year I'm going to do 3D or whatever. I'm like writing all these like smart goals, but like
Yeah.
have no idea like what I'm doing. And I finally like just opened it up, and I don't know what it was. It was free. Anything free is usually like an like easy way for me to like
Good
get into
introduction.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a free tool, and I found a really simple like tutorial, and that's when I was like, okay, I'll just start doing it. And then like I ended up staying up till 3 a.m. for a couple nights just like playing around or whatever. But I'm trying to think back to your question. I'll make sure I answer it. But burnout, yeah, it's tough. I think it's more about management at this
Yeah.
point.
To your point, I don't think there is like a solve. I think there's many different words for burnout. It could be stuck. It could be fatigue. It could be being uninspired. And I think like it really is like part of the artist experience and probably the human experience in general. And it's just like, but I found that on the other side of that, whatever that feeling is, whatever the word that you use, is probably like the next evolution of either you as a person or the style that you have, or, and it's just
Yeah.
kind of like finding what it is, those weird things that are going to like light you up or change your perspective, whether it's reading a book or like designing a different way or kind of
I love
crafting
that.
something. And I feel like there's lots of like books that talk about this. I think you could dive into the world of Rick Rubin and read his latest book,
He's a
or
trip, dude.
yeah, he has a trip. He's a little heady.
Yeah.
One book that I really love is The War of Art. Great title, but also a
Oh,
fantastic short read or audiobook. And it's
I'm
really
gonna write
about
that
just
one
like,
down.
yeah, no, it's a super nice read to kind of jumpstart your perspective, the creative process in
Yeah.
general, not having
I
excuses, but kind of just like doing the work in a way that is manageable.
I'd heard this somewhere, but it felt applicable to my career
Mm,
for a while. But for a long time, I had felt like I was spinning in circles. Like I was just kind of like, I don't know, I was like going through the motions, and over the course of my career and all the jobs that
mm,
I've had and stuff like that, like even to a point where like, not even joking, I went to like 10 years later, went to an agency, and my client was another home appliance brand. And I was just like, I was making email marketing. So I was like, I'm literally walking
oh
in circles
gosh.
here kind of thing. But I was like, but it took a minute for me. Like, I was like, well, how did we get here kind of thing? Did I not learn my lesson? But what took me like a long time to realize was that like, while I feel like I'm walking in circles, if you were to spin that 3D reference on a Z axis, it was actually more of a spiral where I was
Mm,
moving in circles, but I was going up the spiral. And so while
mm,
it's the same view as you're going, like you're also like bringing with you all these new experiences with you,
mm,
and all like points of view and learnings and failures and stuff like that. So like you up at the top, while you might be physically at the
mm,
same
mhm,
level, you have all of these things that happen to you in the middle where so I was like, I don't know, it was like kind of a profound thing for me to be like, oh, because instead of being a designer on a refrigerator marketing campaign, I am now the creative director on it. And like it was like, and I'd had all of these things and experiences and learnings to like bring with that to me. And I think you could probably translate that to all tons of different experiences and stuff like that. And maybe, burnout's probably spinning right down in the middle of that tornado. But like,
My first job out of college, besides just like freelance work, was working at an agency that we basically only made summer camp websites. And
whoa,
so
I didn't know
after
that was such a hot market. Like,
yeah, American summer camps, lucrative business, but uh after 20 of those, it kind of had to do a little something else and learn from that experience. More so, I think like these lessons kind of teach us what we don't want in our lives so that we can kind of learn from that and really get to a point where we establish what what is important to us, what is the value, like what is the type of work that I want, going full circle back to not showing the projects that you don't want more of, showing the projects you want more of.
Being honest with like what you don't want
Mhm.
to, like, is actually a really hard exercise. But it's good and it's worthwhile. We have just been working on at work, like trying to define um my team's like visual and motion language.
Mhm.
And one of the parts of the sprint was like also looking at what we don't want to be like too, which is, I don't
Mhm.
know, it's a fun exercise, but it can be hard to articulate, but it helps you put things in a boundary, I think. So you're like, okay, I'm definitely where you know the edges are kind of thing. I
Mhm.
don't want to be this, so I can play over in here too. And it's like that could be a fun exercise for illustration.
Mhm.
I'm thinking like, what could I do? How could I do that for myself?
Your work in particular is so unique, and I mean, it clearly you're doing something right because you've been named Dribbble and the Noun Project's one of their top illustrators of 2024. So something's happening that's making it work and making it
Yeah.
resonate. Is there anything that you can think of how this kind of passion project went from just like an exercise and a creative exploration to has gotten to the point where it's recognized by these big organizations in the creative industry?
I was like, what? Like
Mm.
when I got that email. Um, I think, yeah, I want to say the one piece was like there was never any intention. Like there was no, like that wasn't the goal. Like I didn't put that on a vision board. It was like I want to be a top illustrator kind of thing. I think following your own heart, your own passions, or whatever, and again that law of attraction was
Mhm.
just like I just started putting things out into the world that I wanted to see, and
Mhm.
like it was just there was no strategy, and I think that was really nice. I think that I mean obviously if you're like maybe a small design studio or something, like you might have those bigger goals, and that's totally fine. But like when it came to that particular thing, like it was more just like, oh, that happened. Like, and I think like that's really nice to have that recognition. And I don't know, it was very validating for me to hear because I wasn't formally trained as an illustrator, and I actually had like a lot of like imposter syndrome about like even
Mhm.
calling myself an illustrator for the longest time. And just because I wasn't like classically trained, or like I don't know, I weirdly felt like I didn't deserve to be called that. But now I'm like, well, I don't know if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like, so I'm like, I guess I'm an illustrator now. And like, so I get that, like on a personal note, was like really rewarding to
Mhm.
hear. And again, when we come back to like those moments of like getting your confidence, I was like, oh, okay, like this is really nice. And I feel like that is like another one of those little tiny pushes in life to like, oh, you should keep doing this, like, and or just like signals, even just like
Mm.
keep following this path, like you're going down the right one.
It's funny how a little bit of validation can give you the kick
Oh.
in the pants to really like, oh yeah, I can do this.
I
This is
know.
definitely a part
I
of me and who
know.
I am.
It means so much to, and like I think it, you know, especially in like the age of influencers and stuff like that, people are like maybe getting like it's just too much of a thing, and people are like, oh, they're attention seeking or whatever. But it is very human nature to, and like we're social creatures, and so like
Mhm.
to have that, like those encouraging bits of validation or positive, I think is really helpful. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's, yeah, it keeps you wanting to keep doing like going forward and keep
Yeah.
doing your thing. Yeah.
It's pretty natural thing to have that be a fuel that can kind of continue to burn within you. It's like, okay, I got some like really positive feedback around this, and it now I can get to the next illustration or the next project. But the hard part is when you get the inverse, when you get those really horrible negative
Yeah.
feedbacks, or people tell you that you suck, or that it's not funny or whatever.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. Just to bring this full
Yeah,
circle,
yeah.
full full
Yep.
whole circle.
How much of
But
that have
I
you run
mean,
into on this journey, and how do you fight through that personally?
I haven't actually been confronted with anybody telling me like you're terrible or
Mm,
whatever. And but maybe part of that could be because I again have all these like irons in the fire, like
mm,
do not depend on one thing for my identity. So even if somebody says this is shit, I was like, whatever, like I
mm.
got this over here kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like um yeah, and but I don't know, I think and maybe if you were to like put me in front of like a MoMA curator or something, they'd be like, "This is not good" or whatever. But like, but that for me, it's not meant to be like that. Like define my success if I made you laugh, or if I smiled, or if like even a wink, like even just like my little kid today, Theo, he was woke up grumpy and just like didn't want to eat his pancake and stuff like that, and I'm just like, please, just one bite. And like, we just like did this stare off kind of thing where she's just like mean mugging me for like, I don't know, 5 minutes or whatever. And just like, I don't want to do this or whatever. But like, like made a silly face or something. And like, I got him to crack. And
Yeah.
like, that was like, ha, I got you kind of thing. And like, that's what I'm chasing. Like, I want that little like, I got you kind of thing moment. Where it's like if it's just like you got the wink, you're in on the
Mm.
joke, like you feel included, like that makes me happy.
Would you say that that's kind of your measure of success?
I think I just figured that out. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you didn't realize that this was a therapy
It's
session,
yeah,
and there'll be an
I love
invoice at the
therapy.
end.
Hope it's covered. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I always knew that like that was my goal, was to make people laugh. And like I said it myself, like I just want to make myself laugh, but like I do really think like bringing somebody along on the ride is like, and that is, pervasive throughout all of my identities, where it's just
Mm,
like as a mom, as a designer, like I want my users to feel like included. I want my illustrations, I want you to like enjoy them kind of thing. And
definitely.
yeah, yeah, I didn't realize that till right now, but like
It's a beautiful thing.
I know.
I made you choose your own adventure, but you can be the master of your own fate here. Is there anything that you want to ask or are curious about or want to talk about?
What would you say your identities are?
Designer, husband is one. I'm going to be a father very soon, so I'm going to figure that out. Hopefully, figure it out well. But I think really it's like I try to be a good person first and foremost, and then I do really like building and creating things. I think it's a noble thing to do because it can bring more joy to people's lives. Business can be like a force of like evil or a force of good, and I try to work with people that are the force for good, and then help build those
Oh,
brands so that they don't get eaten up by monopolies.
I love the intentionality with your values too, though. It is a really hard thing to do. Like,
Hmm.
um, I do wonder, like, if I were, um, on my own, if I could be more value based that way, because, like, especially like coming up agency life, you got put on things just because you had extra 40 hours in a week or whatever,
Hmm.
and didn't really ever have a say in the clients that you got to be put on or projects or anything like that. And so, yeah, like that was one of the like hard things, like when like from McDonald's, for instance, or whatever,
Yeah.
like especially as a vegetarian, that was like very like climate crisis, like
Hmm.
educated and stuff like that, knowing like methane is like one of the biggest producing, and like they have like the biggest beef farms or whatever,
Yeah.
cattle farms. And so it's just like really hard for me to say yes to that job because of those types of things. But then I you know I think it's all about sometimes finding that little thing to hold on to, because I had actually just coming off of another project for a discount grocery store, which like wasn't Aldi, but it was another one of those.
Okay.
And I had just learned the concept of food deserts, and about how like these these stores were like sometimes the only option in available to like people in these food deserts where they don't have anything fresh around. And like, it's either groceries 60 miles away, it's an hour drive kind of thing, or it's a McDonald's 5 minutes down the road. And so I found
Mm.
again, the empathy thing was like finding the person that I could like design for. And I was like, it was in like my mom was a single parent with 3 kids and like, her own small business and stuff like that. And I ended up like thinking about her a lot and her experience where it's like, we went to McDonald's a lot as a child. And like, I think it was trying to find those types of things that I could design for, which was like, you know what? It's a mom that's probably like super stressed out and frazzled and just has like 3 screaming kids in the back seat and just needs like to like put something in their mouth. And I was like, I just want to make her life a little bit easier. And if that means like a kiosk or a drive-through window that's just like, or an app or something, or she can just hit one button and done kind of thing. Like that was it for me, because again, like I don't think anything's in black and white, and it's like, it's really tough. Like, just, the industry that we're in is like capitalism and stuff like that. But it's just like being able to find, and I think, I'm not actually a person that has a lot of goals. I just kind of like let life happen to me, but I like to like think of like directions. And I think, one thing I'd like to keep moving towards, and I see it in my illustration work, is I take on only the projects that resonate with me and like I feel or whatever, some sort of like pull or gravitation towards. And I would love to someday maybe see if my design could follow, because right now it's the safety net and like just the capital chains that bind us, like kind of have all these other things that need to be taken care of. But I would love to like move towards that direction that you are, where it's like, this is where my values are and this is the type of things that I like to do.
And it could just be making the intentional choice to only choose that. Obviously with your side work, you can easily do that, but you could easily write up something and to define that and what really lights you up and share that online, or even just like show more of it. Well, I mean, how are those people finding you? Mainly on Instagram?
I would say so.
Yeah, we have very different ways of people finding us.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mine is mainly through winning awards on platforms and very little organic traffic and very little referral from friends. So it's very much like I think awards are worthless, but they're very worthwhile from the perspective of showing up. People value them because they see that the work is valuable because it's assigned this award. And I think that it can be a huge marketing tool. Obviously, my career is kind of sort of built on it, but I don't do it for the awards, I think, is the big difference. But I mean, I would love for more people to show up in all these different places and kind of find Rogue. But
I would say I feel like there's a parallel there, whereas like with the illustration stuff, like there was no goal of being like winning this award, but it's like a nice like side effect, byproduct.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
Like, okay, yeah, like if you want to give me that, that's fine, that's great. But I think when it's born out of passion, it's like people can tell too, like which is really nice. I think it feels authentic and genuine.
Yeah, you don't want to be the person that needs the awards to feel happy or survive. You or fulfill the part of them that's just like ego. That's the problem. That's the really scary part of like the work and needing that validation, instead of having it just be a little boost when you need it. That's when you're going to get yourself into trouble.
Just there's so much external that you don't have control over, and you're putting your your mindset and your like feelings in somebody else's hands. But if you are able to tap in and find a way to like innately define your own success, then like you'll be way happier.
I'm curious, how does music influence your creative process? Because you put together these fun little playlists on Spotify, like En Route, or what's that one? Get In, We're Getting Abducted.
Oh, yeah. Weirdly enough, I don't usually listen to music while I'm like jamming or whatever. It's mostly when I'm out running, is I don't know. I think I'm heavily influenced by like obviously pop culture, but like music soundtracks. Like I was never an albums person. I was completely a singles and compilation album kind of
Okay.
person.
So
Like,
you make your own mixtape kind of thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I love mix tape. Yeah. So I really enjoy like putting together songs that I feel like match a mood. And we played this have you heard of Song League? I think it's called, an app or whatever. We ended up playing it last winter when it was like terrible out and like nobody wanted to get together, but we wanted to stay in touch kind of thing. And we would come up with themes and then people would like submit their songs and then you'd vote on them. So it was super
Cool.
fun. And a lot of those, I think, themes came out of that or those playlists came out of that. That like music's that like I think I saw a meme once where it was like okay, your wife just was like kidnapped or whatever, and she's 100 miles away, and you're driving a car. What is the song you're listening to? Like that. I love those like hypothetical weird questions. Like I was like, yeah, are you listening to like an empowering song? Are you listening to like a really sad like one? Like you're like, yeah, it's like it's so emotional. It's
Yeah.
so tied up in like experiences that I'm like, I think a lot about that and the way that I remember a lot of my own memories is like what was the music playing like or whatever.
Fascinating.
So
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I guess to answer maybe that question, wife kidnapped, have to do something. Oh, I feel like my like biggest like hype up song, whether I'm like before a client meeting or at the gym, is Sabotage by the Beastie Boys.
Oh, that's a good
I feel like I would
one.
put that on and just get into the zone and get ready to break some kneecaps or whatever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like that's a thing I miss about like music videos. I don't feel like I just don't watch them as much, but I like every morning as I was like getting ready for school or whatever, it was just like MTV was in the background, just like that hour block of like music videos, and just like the storytelling in them was like so insane. Like I think about like all of the like I was like, there's so much fun. Probably why you started making videos or whatever. But
I think on the flip side of that, another like I think important thing, I think physical activity definitely, there's a million benefits. I don't need to explain the science. Like if you don't have a physical practice, I would encourage you to find one in 2025. That's to the audience. But what does running give back to you?
in terms of balance and identities, like it is like literally the only time that is just for me, like kind of thing. I think I've always been a morning person, and for the longest time, that's when I would draw was like in the mornings and stuff like that. But now with a kid, times have had to change a little bit, shuffling and reorganization. So drawing is more like after he goes to sleep and in the evenings. So in the morning, I mean, I wake up at like ungodly time, like 5 usually kind of thing, and just naturally or whatever. And so running, I started doing it, especially in the pandemic, just to like kind of mimic a commute, but like was, you know, really reliant. But now it's become very therapeutic for me, where like I literally run for as long as I can, for as far as I can. And in the morning, knowing that I have to be back by like 6:37 because that's when my kid wakes up or whatever. So it's just like, and I actually just went on a treadmill yesterday at work because it's like 20 degrees out in Chicago, and I was like, didn't really want to run in it. So I had this like, oh, this is why I don't run on treadmills, because I just feel like a hamster that I'm like running nowhere fast or whatever. And what I love about my runs is I never try to take the same route twice if possible, but like, or even if I do, there's, you know, everything's always changing, and I love to see like, I just need that visual stimulation of like going around or like catching, like in the summers, I love to catch the sunrise on the city. Like I just run 3 miles out, and like there's this beautiful bridge that I can go and watch like literally the whole city, and like I love seeing it. And then I'll do it multiple times because like every sunrise is different, and like I don't know. So that is what running has become for me. It's just like a way to get out of the house, and like it is therapeutic in that way. And then what I like to do is like share that. So it's funny that you asked about the music, because for like almost 5 years now, I've been trying to post a picture and a song together. I go out like And that's what the En route playlist is all about, where it's like, it started as like just my commute, but now it's like the running or whatever. It's like every time I go for a run, I post the picture and the song of like how I'm feeling that day. And like, that's it. Like, and it's just one of those habits that like started out like something, but now it's like my little thing and I enjoy doing it. And yeah, I don't know, let's do it.
What is your favorite neighborhood in Chicago? Like, who has like the best food? Where's the best coffee?
A guarantee is always the West Loop or like Fulton Market area. It's where Google is, where I work, kind of thing. And like it's like we're all like Restaurant Row. There's so many good restaurants and like Michelin stars, but also like even the restaurants where like they were like on, the chefs were on Top Chef or something like that too. Always guaranteed to have good food in that area. We love like Ukrainian Village in Wicker Park. We're definitely like the west side of the city. There's like a lot of different personas in Chicago, and we're more the like west side, which I don't know what you would call that. I think somebody else might describe it as like the hipsters or whatever kind of thing. But it's, I guess it's the Brooklyn of New York or whatever, versus the Manhattan, which would be like Lincoln Park area. But
Gotcha.
yeah, it's tough though, because like I love the like this vibe of Lincoln Park, which is like the brownstones and the trees and the park, and the water's really close, like Lake Michigan. But I don't know, you just get a lot more space for what you need over here in the side and stuff. But yeah. But if you have a bike, it doesn't matter, because you can just drive you can ride everywhere.
Yeah, so. It seems super nice for biking in Chicago.
Yes, and they've put up a lot of protected bike lanes. Actually, I just rode my bike down. Well, I ride my bike to work. It's like 20 minutes if I ride it by bike, but if it's like 45 to 50 if I have to take trains and stuff like that. So just efficiently. But no, just again, back to like visual stimulation. It's just really nice to like have something, and then you feel good because you've exercise and you've got endorphins going and stuff. Yeah.
I like to end each of these by asking if there are any wise words. They could be fun words, silly words, advice to the audience that we haven't quite touched on yet.
I just say keep it weird, man, or just like embrace that weird. Embrace your inner weirdo, I think, is like the key to my success. Like just like throwing out all of what you think is supposed to be, like just listen to your gut into your butt, I guess.
The gut and the butt? Yeah. They're
trust your butt. Yeah. I mean, they are connected. Like, physically.
Amazing. And I think that is a core lesson, and embrace your weird applies to whatever your personal brand of weird is too.
Nobody wants to be normal. Nobody is normal, so you might as well like just embrace it.
Exactly. Normal's a construct. So
yeah. I love that. Oh, this has been super fun.
Oh, it's been a blast, Mick. Thank you for coming on the show. And to the audience, remember that we're all legendary and have an amazing story of our own. So on that journey, take the time to be kind, grind, and unwind. And let's make the world a better and more creative place to live. Mick, so fun. I feel like we're best friends already, and I'm excited to come to Chicago and say hello.
You have to come, and then also I'll just start sending you memes on Instagram, and then you'll have to start using it. Yeah, that's how you know you're in my inner circle. It's like when you're in the mass send. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll take it.